All right, we are live and good morning. So I didn't. So no, don't worry, it's fine. I did an interview on the weekend, which was with a gentleman. If you don't know him, his name is Nismo Nick. So he is I guess, the biggest Nissan fanboy that sells Nissans in the United States. He works for Lithia and Driveway. If you don't know them, they're a pretty big auto group. And the reason I interviewed him was I see lots of Honda fans, I see lots of domestic car fans, I see a lot of Tesla fans. I don't see a lot of Nissan fans, especially with the current state of Nissan as a company. And for full disclosure, I used to work for Nissan Corporate. So I'm going to start with a clip where he talks about the Honda Nissan scenario. And he actually talks to Nissan Corporate because, just so you know, he sells the most Nissan Z's a year of any individual in the United States. I think he sold 90 last year, which is kind of crazy. And his big trick was selling them for MSRP during the pandemic. So he didn't charge over list, which was clearly a winning strategy.
For someone young, honesty is huge. Thank yous are huge. You don't know everything. I don't know everything. Ask for help. Never. I would rather have a customer ask a question if the salesman said, "You know what? I actually don't know. Let me find out." Than lie or guess. Use your resources. I mean, you got to really, if you really want to get into automotive, and I actually had this conversation with someone who's getting ready to graduate college, and he's like, "Nick, what do I do?" You focus on the things that make you happy. You focus on the things that excite you. I don't work. I don't feel like I work. I come to a building where I talk about things that I love all day. I leave. I drive the things that I love, and then I go show them on the weekends. It's like my whole life is just one big fun thing. And so when you're able to have that in a career path, whether you're a chef or a dentist or in the auto industry, you'll be very successful. The auto industry, as you and I know, is very difficult. It's very difficult. I'm gonna listen. The U.S. car market is struggling. Nissan is where it is, and we have it just a little bit worse than most people. I'm just gonna say that, but that makes me, super optimistic. I was at headquarters, and a lot of the people were saying, "Hey, Nick, like, how are you always so positive about Nissan?" I'm like, because A, look at the history. Yeah. B, my favorite thing about the company right now, and this might be controversial, but it's my favorite thing, is that we're here. We're low. I love it. You know why? Because all we can do is go up. We are at the bottom, and people are going to count us out. They're trying to, and every day there's another article, and I love it. I love it all because when we come back, and we are, and there are many fun things coming. When we come back as a company, and it turns into people want to buy Nissans again, that's where I'm going to be like, see, it wasn't so bad. I mean, it's not fun being low, but it's so exciting because I know that the next few steps are going to be so much fun for the company, and I just look forward to it. So,
Nissan's been there before, so it's not the first time.
This was not the first time.
What's your thought on Honda and Nissan? What's your thought on Musk and Nissan, which seems to be the latest thing? Like, what's your thought about those two companies if they were to get together? Like, do you think the synergy between Honda and Nissan is similar? I mean, what do you think?
From what I understand, and I won't make this. Actually, I can make it factual. There was a statement issued. The Honda Nissan thing's over. That has been announced. That was not going to be pursued. And from what I understand, I'll cautiously say this because I think this is kind of what it was. Is Honda kind of wanted to make Nissan like a secondary company, like if all else fails, just shut Nissan down and we'll be fine, And I don't think Nissan was really about that. The whole Tesla thing, here's my take. I would have loved the Honda thing because I would have loved the platform sharing availability. I would have loved having an expansion of models and an expansion of powertrains. That would be great because we could benefit from that. We need money. We need product, But we don't just need product that's just like, oh, look, it's a new Sentra that's been redone again. It's like, no, this is
So that's a segment of the interview. You can watch the whole interview. It is up now on audio and video platforms. He sells lots of Nissans, but more importantly, he loves what he does. And I think that that's the secret to success in anything that you do. In preparation for the show today, good morning, I did some surveys on EVs. I did two different ones. The first one is what type of engine will be in your next car? EV was 9%, hybrid was 28%. ICE was 61, and not sure, tariffs scare me, was 2%. There's a lot of challenges with EVs. What is the opportunity was the other one I did, because there's been a lot of focus on used EVs. Buy them cheap, used or new, is 5%. Cheap leases, 30%. Hybrid, hydrogen, 5%. And none of the above, ICE is best, shockingly 60%. So that was kind of interesting. These surveys still have a day left on them, so if you want to vote, happy to do it. Anyway, let's get into the show. Here we go. Woo! And good morning. And he has some really interesting opinions because he's actually driven a couple Nissan electric cars, including the Area. So he has some opinions on those as well.
Life is about connection, having a support system to lean on, and roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
One of the really nice things about Larry, one of the reasons that we brought him to our dealership, is he's so very much aligned with our core values, so with our brand, which is thoughtful and professional service. And because that alignment really worked out well, because he was so committed to the success of others, we really knew that he was the right person to spend time with our sales team, with our managers and each sales consultant. And we're just really thrilled to have a partnership with him. And so we thank him.
How do you adventure? Is it fast? Is it free? Is it clear? Is it rugged? Is it remote? For your next adventure, trust MotorClose for buying, selling, trading, and protecting all of your motorized assets. Powered by Disclose Dealership Management Dashboard, your all-in-one DMS, CRM, menu, lead gen, inventory, staff, client, and deal management solution. Disclose DMD, like a DMS, only better. Mention promo code AutoHub2025 to get special pricing, including waive setup costs, no contract, and your first month's free.
Car dealers often underestimate the power of social media. Are you wondering why my face is plastered in your newsfeed? Are you a GM, dealer principal, or a manager at a car dealership wondering why you see me all the time on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and all over social media? Well, that didn't happen by chance. I target car dealers that are in-market shoppers for social media services, and I'm going to do the exact same thing for you so that you target in-market shoppers for your brand of customers that purchase your vehicles. During my Viato days, helping car dealers appraise and price cars, everyone was asking me, what do I do on social media? What do I do with Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? And this was back in 2016. So here we are 10 years later. I started a company, became an entrepreneur, and now I help car dealers. They either outsource their social media needs to us, or we have a training and education center where we can teach all of your employees how to do social media in-house. 90% of consumers actually follow a business on Instagram. The average adult sits on TikTok for 2 hours a day in the rabbit hole. To learn more information about it or to get a demo from one of my sales associates, click the link below. We would absolutely love to help you.
Good morning. So we have a mixed bag of guests, as always. and Brett was on first. So I know we were talking a little bit earlier about the used car game and the electric game, and I guess some thoughts about different heads of different companies, not to mention anybody. Tell me more about yourself, Brett. What's going on in the EV side, since you're really the expert, and what your thoughts are on EVs as we see a shift globally, and I guess North America wide, in reference to tariffs and rebates. I guess. I mean, you're more in it than I am, but go ahead.
Well, that's a huge question. Good morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, as some of you watching may know, I helped set up the remarketing and used car division at Tesla between 2015 and 2019. And now our company Accelerate, through our XCare product, helps to warranty EV vehicles. So just to kind of, why do we get all this recall? I don't know. Anyways, yeah, so there has been a shift, I guess, toward hybrid vehicles is what I'm seeing mostly. I'm seeing a lot of people that are considering making the EV shift, but they're doing it in an incremental manner. You know, going into a hybrid first to get over range anxiety, charging anxiety, whatever you want to call it, and then kind of make a shift into pure EV. And I just read a survey this morning, actually, that 94% of people who currently own an EV will likely buy another EV as their next vehicle. So the loyalty to the technology is very, very strong. The brand loyalty of Tesla has been damaged recently by different things that our illustrious president and Elon have been doing down here. But at the end of the day, I like to see that the loyalty to the technology is strong.
Right.
I think it's the future of automotive, and just to make, just seeing that transition to electrification is continuing strong is very heartening to me.
So when obviously someone's looking at, say, a PHEV, they're looking at an electric car, they're looking at a hybrid car. I mean, does XCare offer protection on those batteries as well as just a straight electric car?
Just straight electric. That's it. But frankly, if people making the transition toward full electric, it's just a matter of time. A hybrid car is just a gateway drug for most people. Now, for some people, it's a necessity. They don't have decent public charging near them, and needing to fuel with gasoline is still very real for a lot of people in a lot of areas.
Right.
But this decent, high energy, DC fast charging gets into more and more areas. You're going to see a lot more people making the permanent shift. But until that happens, yeah, hybrids are very, very needed in the marketplace for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, Brandy, I believe, drives an electric car, so she would be versed to talk about that since her experience. She lives in a cold climate, so she would probably have some thoughts on that as well. So, Brandy, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us more about electric cars and what you think your thoughts are owning one, actually.
You bet. So, thank you for having me. Great to be here. Great insight, Brent. Thank you for sharing that. I am curious more as to the warranty for EVs. That's brilliant. The weather, yes, it definitely does have a huge impact. You'd be lying otherwise. I think what's so interesting is that people, I wouldn't own an EV if we did not have a charger at home. We have a level 2, so we installed that when we bought it. And I feel like, everybody always focuses, for me, the one thing they always say is like, well, my friend had to stop one time on the way to Calgary, and, he had to charge for 40 minutes. And I'm like, okay, so how much do you charge, or how much do you fuel up every week? How long does it take you every week? Because while you're doing that every week, I have my car in my garage being plugged in. So it's such a flip side, right, to what you give up. But I would never have it if we only had the one vehicle. That was a big factor for us as well. Having more than one vehicle, we have 3 vehicles in our household. So for me to go for a full electric, I do have a Mustang Mach-E. So to go for a full electric was, I don't know, I would have had range anxiety had we didn't have just those other options. Have I ever been worried? Has it ever not fully been charged? Never. But it's just knowing that, and that was kind of our ease into it, where some people might go to a hybrid. We knew that, hey, you always got a getaway. We got the big diesel truck, so we're not. I will say what I find the most interesting about owning an EV is, now keep in mind, I'm in oil country and I own an EV. And it's like, that's brave. It's very brave. It is. I'll be honest. I've been, I had a guy roll down his window and point at me and spit at the car. So I assume it's because of the EV. It is a very interesting take with people, and they get a little bit debative. And I do believe that because the government has imposed so many things, and so many, so many deadlines and so many unrealistic expectations, it's hindered everybody's thought of even considering it. And for me, that, like, I'm brave. I'm always going to be the fish that turns the other way. I'm okay to swim in those uncharted waters, but owning an EV in Edmonton, especially, is not for the weak, for sure.
You mean there's a little bit of hatred because it's not gasoline? I get it.
Not only a little bit. I always have to be like, I want to get a bumper sticker that says my other vehicle's a diesel. You know what I mean? Like an F-350,
That's awesome.
Just so that people kind of go, oh, okay, we'll let her off the hook this one time.
Well,
Yes, I'm a tree hugger. I'm not going to lie. I do love the environment. It's not about that, though. For me, it's about acceleration from here to there in a second. If I want to merge, I have merged like I've never merged before. Going out of my cul-de-sac, which usually takes me 10 minutes, I'm like, I want to be there. I'm there in a second. And so I have no hesitation in the type of drive, and I have no hesitation in the vehicle. And that is a different experience altogether that I wish people would just be open to experiencing.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. I used to live in Vancouver, and at the time I drove a Honda Insight Hybrid, the first generation, which was rated at 84 miles per British gallon at the time. It was the most efficient car I think ever produced. And there was a big protest going on in downtown Vancouver, shockingly, about a big climate change. So I'm driving around in this car, which is like more efficient than a motorcycle, and the protesters were confused as to what to do. Because I had a license plate that said 84 miles per gallon, which used to irritate the Prius people in my neighborhood. And that's why I got it. But what was funny about it was they were like, should we let him through or should we not? And it was kind of hilarious because it was like, the car was kind of a clown car, but it was funny. I got it for that reason because it was so weird that people would look at it because it was bizarre. So Larry, we know you're a big electric car teacher, right? You teach electric car stuff, right? You're still muted. You'll get it eventually. It's not his first Zoom call.
You're muted, Larry.
Larry, you're still muted. Well, while he's figuring that out, let's go to the next question. Obviously, tax breaks are ending, or it looks like they're ending. I hear California is going to continue. I hear Gavin Newsom has a new podcast too, I hear. So that was kind of interesting. But
I'm unmuted.
Oh, you are? Okay. I hear you're the expert on EVs and you train people on them. So what's your opinion on EVs? And are you buying one next time? What's your opinion?
The answer is no.
Okay.
What I teach is American history, and in America we have the freedom to choose. You have that in Canada unless you're a trucker, but that's a whole different story, Brandy. I think EVs, if you like them and you want to drive them, God bless you. But the mistake that we made in our country was they tried to force everybody to do it. That didn't work with prohibition in the 20s. It doesn't work now. I think when you see the incentives fall off, you'll see a little bit of shake-up. But guess what? The people that really love these cars, they love them. So they weren't tied in so much to the incentives. They were tied in the fact that they like the not using gas. They like how fast it is, and they like the whole Elon Musk high tech stuff. So truthfully, I think it'll remain as a niche car, right? I mean, listen, Ferrari is making unbelievable profits. I don't see a whole lot of Ferraris in my neighborhood, but the people that have them and want them are sold them.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same kind of concept. You can't, nor would you ever want to stop anybody from buying an electric car. It just didn't make a damn bit of sense to say everybody has to drive one. And with the lead state, Brandy, I don't know if you know this, but our lead state where the most are sold is California. and they constantly have brownouts because they can't handle the electrical needs we have now. So if you put everybody in, you just have a big state where you couldn't see anything, which with Gavin Newsom might be a plus.
Interesting. So, Brandy, I mean, obviously you're looking at tax breaks. You work with car dealers a lot. Do you think the tax breaks were the reason people bought? I mean, what's your opinion? Did you buy because of a tax break?
Absolutely. I do think that impacted, and I do think we're going to see some fall off. I think, and I completely agree with Brent, the whole push is going to go towards hybrids, PHEV, anything like that, where it's not fully going, but it's enough to feel like you're doing something.
Right.
Well, and I'm going to piggyback on that, Randy. Most of these hybrid vehicles now are plug-in hybrid vehicles, and so for the average Joe or Jane every day that drives 40 or 50 miles, most of them will drive on electric every day anyways, right? So I think getting over the hump of the range anxiety is a big thing with hybrid cars, but also for a lot of people, it's just gonna be the way that they end up, continuing on with just driving electric on most days, but having the flexibility of using gas for longer trips and not really wanting to stop on a longer journey to fuel for a long time. But frankly speaking, I like to say, a pea in a sandwich. I mean, gosh, you're there for 20 minutes or so. You walk over to the Potbelly and get yourself a sandwich, and then go to the bathroom and grab a coffee at the Starbucks next door and get your ass back in your car, and you're on again. If you want to spend any more time literally sitting down in anything, you're just begging for blood clots, man. You don't want to sit on a plane for 4 or 5 hours at a time. You don't want to sit in a car for 4 or 5 hours at a time.
Well, truly, and I have younger children. I have a 7 and a 10-year-old, so we are stopping regardless. So for us, it was like, okay, yeah. But that's always the number one debate, right? Is, oh wow, how often do you have to stop in your once a year trip to Calgary? Once. Just gonna tell you, I don't do that trip up, so I think I'm okay.
In reference to the hybrids, Toyota's an unbelievably ahead of the curve car company. They were working the hybrid angle many years ago. Because this way you really have the best of both worlds. You can satisfy anybody that likes the concept of the electric, but they still have the other thing. I think that always made the most sense.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. A buddy of mine had an i3, which was the early BMW electric car, and you could get it with or without the little engine to charge it, I guess. I think that was the theory. And,
extender.
Yeah, it was a range extender. It was funny because he lives in San Francisco, and I remember driving around with him with this car, which, to be honest, and not to bash on BMW, but it is a clown car. I mean, it looks like a toy SUV is what it looks like. It's clown-like. Anyway, so I'm driving around in this car with him. He's driving it, and it's got like this wood dash. You'd think you'd find in Sweden and IKEA or something. And I'm just like, this is the clowniest car I've ever seen. It just seemed really clowny. But the funny thing about it was, for him, he was constantly just trying to avoid the engine ever starting, to ever have to use it. And it was kind of like a game for him, which was kind of interesting. But maybe that's just his point of view. But the thing that was also really funny is where he lived, which is outside of San Fran, there was a public library that had free charging. So he would drive it from his house down to the public library, charge it, then go on the mass transit downtown, then come back. So he didn't have to pay anything. So it was kind of interesting, just that perception was kind of funny. And I know there's been people fined now for just like leaving their car charging. So
I'll say our rec center used to have free charging through Flow, I believe it was.
Yeah.
It's the Flow app.
Yep.
And they had free charge. It's now paid, but I'll say, like, we swim with our girls in the morning, and that was like, okay, you were going swimming and you were picking up the day's charge. Like, it feels criminal almost, but it was allowed.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead,
buddy. Time, and I had like an exactly 42-mile ride to work, and if I kept it at 65, I could make it all the way there and plug in the car there. I had a mobile charger. And then at the end of the day, I drive the car home. And on 9 gallons of gas, my record is on 9 gallons of gas, I drove 9,000 miles.
Wow.
So I got 1,000 miles to the gallon de facto, right? Of course, a lot of that is electricity, but yeah, I was barely paying any to drive. Comparably speaking, I mean, 9,000 miles, it's a lot of dough. But I hated it when the motor came on. So when you said your friend was trying to get that gas motor on,
He was like nervous about it. It was hilarious.
I hated it. I absolutely hated it. Yeah, but it was a long ass commute, and I enjoyed just plugging it in all day. And, yeah, going home on the battery as well.
Well, he bought it initially for the HOV lane, and then it became a new problem. There was too many people with electric cars, so that was not an advantage anymore, which I thought was kind of funny.
Your regular lanes are actually moving better.
Yeah, that's what was going on, and I was like laughing. I was like, so you bought this car. It was hilarious. So, I mean, you look at used cars, and this is a market. I actually had a talk with Dave, I think, last week about this, because he's convinced with tariffs that the used car price in Canada is going to drop because of the export. But when you look at used electric cars, I think those are probably the most value for your dollar. I mean, you look at a car that says 5 years old or even 3 years old that's a lease return. I mean, what's your opinion, Brent, as A, the dealer can sell it used and it's affordable, but B, I hear Volkswagen's going to have 120 grand. At least that's what they're saying new. So used, I think that's going to be a pretty good value. I mean, is that a good way to get into electric cars?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had a saying when I was in the car business: "There's 2 years and 20,000 miles between a wise man and I mean, you might as well let somebody else, take it in the shorts for the depreciation. This coming from a guy that bought his Tesla new back in 22.
Yeah.
So but anyways, so at the end of the day, yeah, used cars are a great way for people to walk into the EV space, and that's why our company exists, right? I mean, we are the preeminent warranty for EVs. We're specific to EVs, and we help people make that transition. So yeah, you can get a $50,000 car for 22, 23 grand, and toss a warranty on it, drive it for the next 6, 8, 10 years. God bless you. I mean, that's a wonderful way to get into the technology without the technology getting into your wallet, right?
So what realistically can someone expect? I mean, obviously you cover the warranty, but what can they realistically expect as longevity for some of these cars? Like if someone bought it, say 2 years ago, like what?
The battery packs are designed to last between 500,000 and 1 million miles. The drive motors are probably good for at least 250,000 miles. So yeah, the technology is very, very robust.
So if someone's buying, say, a used Mach-E to pick a car, and they bought it, 2 years after the person leased it or whatever, they could realistically get 8 to 10 years out of that car, and a warranty would be a smart move to cover
very,
that, right?
very realistic. Yeah. The warranty is a smart move just because something is designed to last a long time doesn't necessarily will. And so when these big components break, they can be financially devastating for some people. I mean, a battery pack is $14,000, $17,000, $20,000 for some of these cars. So yeah, having that additional protection on those components is crucial. But yeah, it's amazing technology. It's zero local air pollution. I mean, my wife and I go out on a totally freezing cold day here in Chicago, and the garage is closed. I just turn on the car and get it heated up. I'm not going to kill my family. With an ice car, you heat up the car in a closed garage, and basically they find you in the spring.
Yeah, there was all kinds of discussion about an actor who died last week about carbon monoxide. It's like, no, probably not. Anyway, go ahead, Larry.
So basically, what you're saying, Brent, is the car is fabulous except for the constant tire replacement. And if you are trying to kill your family, you have to find a different way because the carbon monoxide.
I will say this. No, I like that. That's good. Constant tire replacement is primarily because these cars are so damn fun to drive. I mean, literally, you put the go pedal down and you drive at the speed of thought. It is dizzying. It is very, very enticing to drive like that. I'm pretty chill. Every now and again, when I need to get out there, I get out there and I stomp on my Model Y performance, and 0 to 60 in 3.5 feels really good. But I should get 35,000 miles out of my tires. And frankly, I didn't buy the car to care about the tires anyways. I'll just spend the money when I need to spend the money. But yeah, it is more frequent tire changing because you have a heavier car that's got a lot more torque that basically peels the tires out if you want to drive it that way.
So it's kind of like that Porsche guy. He's not really driving like grandma. Is that what you're saying?
Well, my 350Z used to go through rear tires too. So
And there was that actual post. I'm not sure where the dealer is, but they were posting. They were trying to convince these Porsche guys to drive an electric Macan. It was kind of interesting, just because like I think that's a pretty dyed-in-the-wool gas group. But yeah, I mean, obviously that's another thing that people who aren't familiar with electric cars really don't get. I mean, I was driving. I think I test drove the Tesla first generation Roadster. The new one is out yet, obviously, a long time ago. And I think what really surprised me about it, other than I had trouble getting into it, but other than that, was it was just a very quick vehicle. And I think car enthusiasts, and this is true with the new Dodge Charger electric or whatever they're doing. That kind of irritates people because they're like, well, that's not really the same thing, and it isn't the same thing, and that's okay. I mean, we did a show with that. We had a young race car driver, and we talked to him a little bit about electric racing because he's in NASCAR and he's going to be in Indy, so he's raising money for that. But he didn't have opinions on it because it doesn't have because if you're driving NASCAR, you can't plug it in like during the race. So that was kind of interesting. But, when you're looking at brands, Toyota, Ford, Chrysler, Honda, obviously we're talking about Nissan and Honda and everything else. Do you think we're going to get to that 100% electric with all the current chargers? I mean, no Norway's there, but is anyone else going to get there? What do you think? So, Brandy, what do you think?
No, nothing we have right now came overnight.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to move forward overnight. Not and I'm with Larry. The freedom to choose what you want. That's not, come on. That's, I'm not saying that there aren't limits for keeping other things in line, but, what ICE engines, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. And so I just think it's so unreasonable. And the second that government mandates is as soon as you're going to have repent, right? That's not going to be how you're going to get your buy-in, not even a little bit. And exactly what Larry said, if we did, are we even ready? Not even close. Not even close. This is not happening tomorrow. I think that the biggest opportunity will be in your hybrids for sure. And it'll be a slow transition, just like getting here is. Not everybody drives today. You know what I mean? So not everybody drives a motorcycle. Not everybody drives expecting that is just very unrealistic.
Well, and there's the reverse psychology of it too. When daddy government tells you have to do something, your knee-jerk reaction is to say, no, I don't have to do that, right? I'm free. And so, having anything that smacks of a mandate or pressure, definitely get some pushback from the public, and rightly so. I mean, the government really shouldn't be that active in telling us what to do. By the same token, once you enter into this technology, I think for a lot of people, it's a permanent move, and I hope it becomes a permanent move for more and more people as we move forward. But I think it's going to start with cities just banning local air pollution type vehicles, right? Where you can't go into the city center. We see that in Europe a lot. We see that in Asia, where different city centers now, they're saying that gas engine, diesel vehicles, whatever, cannot come into the city center because the population density is just such that you can't drive them there. And so that slow kind of exclusion is going to drive adoption a little bit more as well, because people are going to want the freedom to go into the city every day, not just every other day or on these different, exclusion days that you can't drive, locally air pollution producing car.
Yeah.
But therein lies the rub. Wait, therein lies the rub, because where China is obviously going to be the biggest with the electric cars, they're also building a coal plant every day. If America cut out every bit of pollution, as did Canada, the primary polluters are still China and India, and I don't see that going away in any way, shape, or form. It's not even on their radar.
Yeah, but China, I mean, I've been to China, so I can tell you they have a real need to clean it up. Like, I mean, it's like it's worse than LA in the 70s. It's bad. But I do think they will clean it up.
They're taking internal organs out of Uyghurs. Somehow, I don't think clean air is going to be a big priority for the next few years.
Well, yeah, but when the air is yellow like paint, it's past the point where you got to fix that problem. So, I mean, it was shocking to me because you see these people, they're outside smoking when the air was like yellow. Like, I mean, it was like, Yeah,
Well, you might as well smoke in China, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so all right, whatever.
something's going to get you either way. But I agree with you on the government side. Whenever the government says, "Listen, I want to help you. Why don't you do this?" That's a mistake. So, but I do think you will see big car companies integrate and big car companies do some vertical integration because in order to transition, even if that number is 25% electric, which I think realistically it could be in a few years, depending on the country or higher, you're going to have economies of scale. And these companies that invested all this money, they're not just going to abandon those dollars. Like they're going to do something with it. So we were talking earlier about solid state, which seems to be the next gen of this stuff. And we were talking a little bit about them pushing that out just because you got to sell cars today. But the other thing that I think I've seen a lot of recently from every manufacturer is rebates in terms of discounts on electric. So I think the good news is just like hybrids, you're going to see a lower price point for electrics. And I think that's going to drive demand. What do you think, Mr. Brent?
Well, well, first let me just speak to one thing about tariffs and incentives.
Yeah.
I think incentives. I'm one of the few people in the EV space that's actually for government stopping the incentives on EVs.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because a lot of the times it's just a hidden profit center for the EV maker, right?
Yeah.
They can just keep prices higher because you can count on getting 4,000 to 7,500 to 10 grand, depending on what state you have to buy one.
Yeah.
So if you take away the EV incentives, you get down then to real, honest, economies of these things. I talked to a company the other day. They got $100,000 in government incentives for people to buy these electric trucks, and their electric truck is $400,000 more than their diesel version of the same truck. I'm like, hold on a second. You got 400 grand worth of profit margin here, and you're going to hit my government for $100,000 of it. EVs are cheaper to build than gas engine cars. So
Yeah.
how do you have the chutzpah to say this truck should cost $600,000? That just pissed me off. So yes, I believe that all these incentives and everything have to go away to make the market a clean place where you can literally just make money the old-fashioned way, which is having decent production economies of scale and sell something that people want to buy. What was your original question? Sorry.
Well, I mean, you talk about 25%. You talk about obviously government incentives going away. You talk about really consumer demand driving things, and I agree with you. Like, I mean, I remember hybrids when I sold them were about $7,000 more than a gas car. Memory serves me. But when you have a doubling of the list price on a new one, that's not sustainable without whatever the incentives are. So it's going to there's going to be downward pressure, especially as you see these manufacturers going, okay, my dealers have a bunch of these. We're going to hit you with a big rebate to try and blow them out. But what's going to happen is the cost is going to have to come down. I mean, I saw a guy yesterday driving one of these Hummer electrics, which has got to be the most idiotic electric car ever made. But I don't know what those things were costing, but they're clearly not going to be worth what you paid for them. But that's kind of like driving an electric tank. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, that's just the far extreme to the other way, right? Just having this obscene, vehicle with 180, kilowatt hour battery in it. That's just, in my opinion, that's sick. But God bless America, choose whatever you want. I don't care. The economy will sort that out. But I think that you're seeing a lot of incentives now from manufacturers to try and move inventory. You're seeing a shift in mentality. I think that comes from the top very often. You have an administration change where they're focusing on other things. People start focusing on other things, right? We're faced with them in a lot of ways. So at the end of the day, it's going to shake out to about 4 or 5 car companies making stuff that people want, and ultimately the winner is going to be the company that can produce these cars at scale and affordably. Right? That's all it's going to come down to. You really can't have government incentives too far into any technology. It just distorts things over time. Yeah,
I mean, you look at what Volkswagen's invested. You look at Honda and Nissan. Everyone else has invested. Toyota, obviously. Obviously, the Hyundai and Kia are heavily into it, as are other brands. But when you look at it, I mean, the big thing to me, and I guess I could use the Volkswagen electric hippie bus as an example. I mean, you still got to have an attractive product, and I think that's really what's been missing. Like, you can make weird looking electric cars. I mean, I think Nissan with their Leaf was one of those companies that did that.
Yeah.
But it's still got to look good, and I think the Hummer is a good example of almost silliness with electric cars. It's like the gas one was 8 miles per gallon, but this one's electric. It was like, oh, okay. So I thought that was kind of a crazy marketing idea. It's like, yeah, let's make the most crazy thing we can make.
I don't quite get that car at all. But like I said, God bless them. People want to buy them, they'll make them. If people don't want to buy them, they'll stop making them. And Hummer died once, and it could die twice. So
yeah. So what's your thinking, Brandy? I mean, when you look at replacing the other 2 cars you have eventually, what are you looking at next? Like, what's your thought?
Honestly, we'll always have a truck, and a big bad truck. It's not that, I will say. The couple shows ago, somebody brought up. I think I mentioned something about the ego of sound. That I'm okay with sound.
Yeah.
But what I failed to continue with is that I do love the rumble. Like, there's nothing better than that. You know what I mean? The rumble of the feeling of the vehicle working. I'm still old school that way, that I still am attached to that.
They have kits.
I also think
they have kits. They have kits that can actually replicate the sound. There's a lot of people with
sound, yes, but not the rumble. Not the actual feeling. It's probably a girl thing. I'm gonna tell you, but anyway.
If you would, when I'm in Canada,
I had to say it. I know everybody was thinking it, but
Brandy, when I'm in Canada, I have a unique service for $50. I will sit in the back seat and make a rumble noise. You just have to feed me once in a while.
No, not noise. Not noise.
A rumble.
But even beyond choice and beyond, this government infrastructure and support, there has to also be companies like Brent's that actually provide solutions to make this happen. Like I actually had a direct to warranty company in BC over a decade ago. And one of the mantras was, now you can drive the vehicle of your dreams because you can have a warranty on it, right? I love Land Rover. Well, you don't buy a Land Rover without a warranty, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah.
And the same idea applies here, understanding that there are companies coming into place to focus on things, not only that include the longevity of what we're putting forward, but also we have to get dealer buy-in. And dealer buy-in comes with products that they make money on. And it's that simple. What pissed off dealers with EVs is they weren't making the money. Manufacturers were dictating that they weren't allowed to make money on many of the vehicles. And that to me was, you want to buy in, you got to actually support the whole infrastructure that supports you.
Yeah, I mean, there was some interesting vehicles for sale last week online. One of them was a guy who'd taken a Jeep Wrangler and put a V10 Viper engine in it, which I thought was a little nuts. But the other one was, I think it was the Aston Martin variation of the smart car for Europe. And someone had put a V8 in it. And it was like, that's a crazy idea.
You have to sit on the roof.
It was like a one-off crazy car someone had built. But we've had guests on the show before have done things with gas engines, but also when you look at electric, I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities, not only from a design perspective and a power perspective, but also from a footprint perspective. When you look at what you can do from a design perspective with this technology, because of how it has to be set up, it definitely gives you definitely different options. And I think Jaguar is planning with their new car to do something electric. I don't know. But when you look at EVs and you look at that target, say, of 25% and the longevity of gas cars today, just because people are owning them longer, maybe it makes sense to shorten up that gas car ownership and to buy a used EV that maybe has a 10-year lifespan left. I mean, have you had any discussions there with customers, Brent?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, folks like the idea of having a car that they have very little scheduled maintenance on as well. And EVs don't have oil changes. They don't have transmission fluid collectors. They don't have a lot of those things that are inherent in a gasoline engine car. Plus, as Brandy spoke to earlier, being able to plug in the safety and security of your own garage rather than going out to some gas station where you're on the swivel watching your first woman at night. I mean, there are a lot of things that are not nice about going to a gas station that I think guys don't think about as much as women do. It's a very vulnerable place to be outside of your car. In a place like that that's poorly lit with people driving in and out all the time. But as to the 25% and what Randy said a second ago about dealer buy-in, that is essential. Dealer buy-in is huge. Somebody walks onto the lot and they're iffy about getting an electric car or whatever. That salesperson 9 times out of 10 is going to go, you know what, pal? Do you got charging in your garage? You want to spend like $5,000 to get garage, charging? No, come here a second. I'm going to show you this Civic hybrid over here. I think it's 45 miles to the gallon. You can fuel it up right over here. You see that Shell station right there? You can fuel it right there. You don't have to go out of town. Listen, this is the car for you. And you know what? My manager says right now I got a special on that car. So hold on, I'm going to go get the keys. And boom, the guy is not buying an EV, period. Because the salesman doesn't want to spend a half an hour, and I'm not batting the salesman, trust me. He doesn't want to spend a half an hour educating this guy on EVs. He doesn't want to spend a lot of time talking about getting garage charging into your house and whether you've got a 100 amp service or 200 amp service and whether you've got enough, room on your fuse panel and all this. All he wants to do is sell a car. He's there for 6-8 hours. I say he because most car salesmen are men. There are lots of great women in the biz too. But this car salesman has a limited amount of time and a limited amount of options. He needs to sell cars to feed his family. So he's not going to spend the time to educate people. Unless dealerships start to get like EV experts, EV geniuses, whatever, where somebody comes in about an EV or a lead comes in about an EV, that they go straight to Chuck or straight to Susan, that's awesome. They need to go straight to the EV experts because these people are passionate about it. They'll continue that role. But if they go to just any salesperson on the floor, most of them, sadly, even now, don't really have a good solid grasp of EVs. That person is going to switch them over to something they know so that they can sell a car so they can get paid. And it's not a bad thing. It's just an economic reality. Most people just don't have the time or the bandwidth.
Yeah, ironically, when I sold hybrids, I was kind of the hybrid expert. The car guys didn't want to talk to anybody. Oh, it's an electric or it's a hybrid. Yeah, I don't want to talk to that person.
Go see.
I don't want to talk to that person. So there's an opportunity there for someone who maybe wants to sell more cars and maybe wants to learn the technology. And I don't think it's that much of a stretch. But to your point, the car salesman or sales lady or salesperson may just be, not versed in it and scared of it a little bit. Like they're not sure what to say.
You got to be pretty stupid and pretty lazy not to want to have every opportunity you possibly can. They should embrace it. It's just one more thing to sell, and it could lead to another deal. You could even sell off of it.
Oh, I agree.
Absolutely. And once you become their expert, once you become their guy or gal, they're going to send their friends to you after they bought their EV from you. Hey, go see my friend Larry. Larry knows his shit. So they're going to send people to you, and you're going to develop loyalty, but it's going to take you time. And a lot of times people are very short-sighted. They want to make their next paycheck, because they have to make their next rent or their next mortgage.
Yeah.
And so the reality of it is that a lot of people want a quicker sale, and a quicker sale is selling something that everybody understands. And secondly, you need that extra.
Yeah, we talk about that transition, right? That we all have to transition. We have to transition our house, but we do also have to transition the salesperson and even having the conversation. And for them, you're right, Brent, the easiest conversation is the hybrid. You're pleasing your customer, you're giving them something that they asked for, and still giving them something you're comfortable with, a much faster turnaround. So yeah, absolutely, there's so much more to that.
Yeah, I mean, it took 10, 15 years to get the hybrid, at least people getting used to it. Like I was thinking back in 2000, it was a weird thing. Like people saw Prius, they're like, what is that? So I think it took 10 years.
Horses in our cities. So.
You had cab drivers buying them by the dozens, and that wasn't enough of a selling feature. Like all you had to do was say, check out who's the cab fleet is buying. And that should have been enough of a sales pitch to actually sell people on it. If they chose it as their choice, they'd have to say something.
Yeah, I would think you're going to see that transition. I just don't think it's going to be as quickly as people think. So I think you're going to see it's probably going to take 10 years to get to that 50% tipping point in big cities initially. I mean, I don't know in the rural neighborhoods, but I think also it comes down to people just being open to it. When someone tries to dictate something doesn't work very well, but when you look at the technology in these cars today, especially with screens and everything else. Actually, the guy in my garage last night was changing his own oil on his Toyota truck because he took it to Jiffy Lube and they didn't do it properly, so he had to do it himself, which I thought was kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, when you look at the complexity of the vehicles today, even the gas vehicles, there's so much technology in them. So if you can simplify the engine piece and you can make less parts that need to be replaced, as the price point gets down more to earth like it did with hybrids, I think you're going to see bigger adoption just naturally, because people are going to go, hey, I got to spend X on a car, I want to spend less. And I think that's the way to look at it. I mean, that's my opinion anyway. What do you think, Larry? You're scratching a bunch of stuff down. So what do you think, Brent? What do you think the tipping point's going to be?
Well, you kind of touched on something. These cars are cheap to maintain but expensive to fix. I tell people that all the time. And so electric vehicles, the beauty of them is that from a component perspective, from a like friction component perspective, EVs are very, very simple cars, right? They've got a lot of components in them, but there isn't a lot of like friction wear that you get with regular gas engine cars. You don't have pistons, piston rings, valves, gears, all the rest of that stuff that literally just wears away at itself over time. So EVs are designed to last for a long, long time. So I think over time we're going to see greater and greater adoption of these cars, just because, as more people are exposed to the technology and as more people get comfortable with it and this infrastructure builds out. Yeah, but 10 years for 50%, I think it's a little on the negative side. I say 10 years from now we'll have about 70% adoption in most places. But I guess
I think there's another interesting thing here, Brent. More and more and more dealers, I hope, are waking up to the fact that fixed operations is just about everything. The profits are more stable. It's the way you keep people into your system. And the interesting thing is, with these cars, it's like the yin yang. From a consumer's point, it's great that you don't have to do much work. From a dealer's perspective, it's looking at a source of lost revenue. Exactly. The bottom line. So listen, we've got Trump's only in for 4 years. Who knows who's going to be after him or what's going to happen? Because as we've seen, we're so polarized, probably in both our countries, that you're going to see dramatic shifts that I don't even think we thought of. I mean, listen, Brett, if I met you 35 years ago and you said, Larry, you seem pretty smart, which would be nice to have somebody say that to me, Brandy. You seem pretty smart. What do you predict? Well, the Berlin Wall's coming down, and we're going to have a black president. And a guy named Elon Musk is going to revolutionize cars, even though Tucker couldn't do it, and Bricklin couldn't do it. You'd say, Larry, you're crazy. The Berlin Wall's never coming down. America's not at the point where they're going to elect a black president. And if Bricklin couldn't do it, and Tucker couldn't do it, who are both very bright guys, nobody's going to do it. So, the weird thing, predicting next year's trip, predicting 10 years from now, man, you really have to be an optimist and prepared to be wrong, because, as my boy Ben Franklin said, when you're finished changing, you're finished. And I think we're going to see massive changes. Look at all the stuff around us, the technology, the AI stuff, that's coming on like wildfire. And all the different changes. And you've got Amazon, and you can buy 100 sign. The hell's that going to mean? In 10 years, they told all the dealers to put up $30 million buildings. And now they're telling them, well, maybe you don't need a building. We'll just buy it. So I think there's so many things ahead of us. I think we just got to keep our eyes open and keep our finger on the pulse. But really hard to predict, 10 years from now.
I think I like what you said about fixed ops being important, and it is. And I think that with the less maintenance involved with these cars, it is a lost opportunity for a lot of dealerships. But it's also an opportunity for them to start building customer loyalty. It's an opportunity for them to start building loyalty into the service process and tire changes and rotations and aftermarket products and all kinds of other things. They could start building up a lot more customer loyalty if they started building a lot more into the service process and a lot more consultative process, a lot more connected process. There are companies now, fleet companies, that are using connected apps on different cars to actually predictably tell people when they need maintenance. So you could offer this as a service in your service drive. Hey, plug this into your OBD or whatever the hell it is now. And it'll predictably tell us when you're coming up on tire rotation, when you're coming up on this or that service that you're going to need. And actually reach out to them ahead of time and say, listen, according to the data that's coming in, you're actually due for this or that. I think there are a lot of opportunities. Wherever there's one opportunity dropping off, there's another opportunity raising its head. You just have to be aware of it and start to work in that direction.
Yeah, cars are going to need. Cars are going to need.
Right. And the next thing is the dealers want customer loyalty, because almost every dealer I hear talk about their culture are completely ignorant of how their culture really works on a day-to-day basis. It's like when they tell you how great their website is, but they never go there and see all the broken links.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And at the end of the day, we have to understand that change is inevitable. I love what Mark Twain said. People love progress; they just hate change. And the fact of the matter is, you can't have change without progress. So we have to understand where the world's going. We have to start aiming ourselves towards that world. It's just that simple. And folks that aim toward the past will slowly die, and people that aim towards the future will grow and prosper. And that's going to be just figuring that out.
Hey, Brent, that's not my favorite progress quote from Mark Twain. My favorite progress quote from him is the opposite of progress is Congress.
Yeah, there you go.
And we got a massive amount of comments. I got so engrossed in the conversation on this, of course. Nobody wants to be first from Phil Hughes. EVs release dangerous amounts of electromagnetic waves. I have no idea what that is from somebody.
Oh, yeah. My EV has been frying my brain for 10 years.
And then hybrids or plug-in hybrid. The plug-in variety is only efficient if you remember to change them, to charge them. And then I had a really positive one.
Yeah, your phone's only as good as remembering to charge.
Wait, was that my husband? Was that my husband?
Richard P.
The charging in our household.
Richard P. And then we have tested a used 130,000 kilometer Tesla, and the fuel efficiency is the same as a 10K mile equivalent. The total cost of running a 130K mile vehicle is much cheaper than an ICE equivalent. And then I had a tire one. I'm still on my first set of tires after 30,000 miles. And then we've got our anti-electric guy, Larry. Ice baby.
Yeah.
Anyway, final thoughts. We're almost out of time. So Brandy, what's your final thought?
Really, the only thing I want to actually close off is one thing with the whole Amazon coming direct to consumer, manufacturers putting their inventory there. That is actually one thing that I would have predicted to happen first if they were going to try for a different selling platform, that they would have first tried it with their EV vehicles. I think it's great that they went kind of on, Amazon. Hyundai is selling direct that way, but I thought if anything, EV sales would have transitioned over to a direct sale platform such as Amazon. So I'm a little bit surprised. That's all I want to close with.
Larry, final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say what a pleasure it was to see Brandy and Brent. Always good to see you, Ian. And man, these prediction shows are going to keep us in business for a long time as we flail away trying to figure out what's going to happen next.
Fantastic. Brent, if someone wants information on XCare as a dealer, they're looking to sell maybe used electric cars, or they want an option for their customers, how do they find out about that?
If you're here in the U.S., www.xcare.com will basically take you right to our XCare warranty page. If you'd like to reach out to me directly, Brent.cv, so my first and last name on the screen, Brent.cv@xcare.com, and I'd be happy to help. Our warranty is currently only available in the United States, so sad to say our Canadian brothers and sisters can't participate yet.
Whoa, Brent! Trump has wait, Canada's going to be the 51st state, so maybe there's still hope for you.
God forbid for the Canadians' sake, they're the 51st state. We're more amped up on this side of the border right now than you ever will be. But enjoy being your own country. Plus, I like the fact of having another country where they speak English, or at least a close approximation nearby. So.
All right. Well, thanks very much for everything. And of course, if there's any questions presented to the show, we are doing a show next week on tires, and the Fixed Up show on Friday this week will be about how to recruit and attract and retain technicians in the service side of the house. So if you are looking for techs or need to get some tips, tune up for that show. It's every Friday at 5:30 East, and it's a live show like this one. Have yourself a great week. Thanks for watching. If you want the full interview with Mr. Nismo Nick, who's the, I guess, the fanboy Nissan salesman, you can check it out on the YouTube channel. It is up right now, wherever you get your podcasts or in video format. Have a great day.
Stay healthy.
Peace.